I wasn't the best big brother. Back in Virginia, because my parents worked these insane hours, I was left in charge of my little half brother, who was this little ginger haired, freckle faced little turd named Matthew. And I mean, this kid was so cute. We would let him get away with everything. I mean, he's a gargoyle now. But he's handsome. I'm just joking. But but I was this, I was 16. I was 16 and he was 7, and so I was 16, so I was an asshole, And so I would just let him get away with like this crazy stuff. Like one day, I get a phone call from like the headmaster of his daycare, and she's like, "You have to come get him now." So I got in our Volkswagen Bug and I drove down to the daycare center, and I pull up, and like right as I pull the car up, she runs out of the daycare center, like dragging Matthew behind her like a kite, And I'm like, "What happened?" And she said, "We went on a field trip to a horse ranch, and Matthew was throwing rocks at the horses." And I looked at Matthew. And I was like, "Is this true?" And he's like just this big snot bubble with tears squirting out the sides. And he looks at me and he says, "I wasn't trying to hit the horses. I was trying to hit the riders." And I was like, "I'm gonna buy this kid an ice cream." And, but to give you an idea of like how much of an asshole I was, there was this one evening we were in my basement, and I'm playing the Nintendo. He's trying to wrestle the remote away from me so we could watch Inspector Gadget, but like I'm trying to save the universe, on my Nintendo. So I shove him away and I go, "Shut up! You're adopted!" And I went back to kicking some Metroid ass. And I was totally oblivious to how my words had landed and the shock and horror that was on this little boy's face. He wasn't adopted, by the way. But he continued to think he was for the next several years. And my words sent him on this sort of juvenile delinquent warpath where he was like shoplifting and throwing rocks at cars and getting in all this trouble. And finally, a couple years later, like he gets sent to the guidance counselor's office, and she's like, What is wrong? Why are you like this?" And he was like, "Because I'm adopted." And my older brother Drew's the only one who would tell me the truth. And I had moved out of the house by then. I was like 19, and I get this phone call from my mom, and she's like, "Did you tell your brother he's adopted?" I was like, "Oh, shit." And so she's like, "You have to," she puts him on the phone, and I was like, "Sorry, you're one of us. Gooble gobble, google gobble," And so she's like, I've had it. I need you to be a responsible older brother for once in your life." So she's like, "I'm going to send him to you for the weekend." Now, I'm from Virginia. I'm living in my first apartment in New York City. I'm 19. I'm living in this cloud of marijuana smoke with my roommate Bongo, who is this punk kid with green Liberty spikes, and all we did was get high and go to punk rock shows, and my mom knows this, but she's like, "You're taking him," so she gets him a ride to New York City, and all of a sudden I got this 10-year-old kid. and and I'm like, "What am I going to do? What do you do with a 10-year-old kid in New York City?" So I was like, "I'm going to take him to Coney Island." So we go to Coney Island, and we have this great time. We ride the Cyclone, and we ride the Wonder Wheel, and we're having this great bonding time. And he spies the Coney Island Freak Show. And I'd never been before, so he's like, "Oh, yeah, let's go." But it was like in between shows. But back in the day, like it was before you could go into the Coney Island Freak Show, there was the Coney Island Freak Museum. So I paid $4 each, and we went through the turnstiles. And Matthew sees something in the back of the room, and he's just off like a shot. And I start wading through all the people, past the jars of pickled chupacabras and the mermaid skeletons, and I finally find Matthew in the back of the room, and he's standing in front of this display of old photographs. And above the above the display in this sort of party banner lettering, it reads, "The Wall of Genital Oddities." And every little photograph was this rectangular porthole into this other dimension where men have penises that branch off like roots of ginger, and there were like Kalahari bush vaginas with strange labial piercings and painted like big dongs covered with so many venereal warts they looked like the sandworms of Dune, and it was just mesmerizing. And then like after a minute, like I feel like the eye of Sauron on me, like all of a sudden, hundreds of miles away, my mother is cognizant of the fact that her 10-year-old baby is being exposed to this display of deformed wieners and twats, So I just grab him and I pull Matthew away, and he just goes ape shit. And like, just before you think that I'm being prude, this was like 1993. This was like more innocent times, This was like the days of dial-up modems and America Online with parental controls. Like, as far as I knew, this kid hadn't seen anything like this before, you know what I mean? So I pull him into this other room, and he's just so freaking angry at me, and because I had committed the worst possible sin, I had become an adult. Or at least I was acting like it, and he wouldn't stand for it, It was just such a betrayal. So it's time to go into the Coney Island Freak Show. And, we walk up the metal bleachers, and we sit in the back, and Matthew's just sitting there, and he's sulking. And, we watch the contortionists, and we watch the sword swallowers, and we watch this. They watch them drag this electric chair, out, and a guy sits in it, and they put the helmet on and throw a switch, and he pops and crackles, and then he rises victorious, and everybody's applauding. But Matthew is just sitting there with his arms crossed and his head hung. And I'm looking at him, and I'm thinking, this poor kid. Me and my sister grew up. And we moved out of the house when he was 9. And he was the only little kid left in the family. And that had to be a really lonely place. So at the end of the show, the ringleader comes out. And he says, "Ladies and gentlemen, for an extra $8, we have a room in the back with something special in it. And anybody under the age of 18 must be accompanied by an adult." So I looked at Matthew, and I was like, "What do you think, little buddy?" And he's like, "Yeah." So I was like, "All right, let's do it. Let's do this." And I'm like, I'm getting my brother back, So I grab his hand, and we run down the bleachers together, and we get in this line, and we follow this line down this corridor. And the whole time I'm thinking, like, what's going to happen? Like is there going to be some deformed elephant man in the back, or is like some purple-ass baboon going to launch at us from the shadows, But no, we get to the end of the hallway, and there's just like this 12 by 12 room, and it's with nothing in it. And there's like, I don't know, 25 of us, and we're all just sort of packed in there. The only thing that's in this room is this television set mounted in the corner, like one of those hospital TVs, And I'm like thinking, oh my God, what's going to happen? Like we're right in the middle of the room. There is no way out, They close the door, and the lights go out, and this carny in the back of the room hits play, and the screen crackles. And this black shape appears on the TV and slowly comes into focus, and what's on the screen is the world's angriest looking vagina. And I realize what we're about to see. It's a birthing video from the 1970s. And I'm thinking, oh no, what am I doing? What's happening? And all these parents are looking at me like, get that kid out of here. But I'm like, I don't know. Matthew's face is like mushed up against some guy's shoulder, and I'm like, I don't know what to do. And then all of a sudden, it starts happening. Just blood starts coming out of this vagina. And all this ooze, and this baby's feet, start coming out, and this doctor reaches into frame and starts pulling this baby out, and then it's followed by this, gross umbilical cord and this tide of afterbirth, and then it's over. And I'm thinking, oh my God, I'm the worst babysitter in the world. We're in Coney Island for 2 hours, and I think I turned this kid into Buffalo Bob from Silence of the Lambs. And I can feel all these judgmental stares on me, you know? And I'm thinking, I've just failed my mom so badly. And then I hear this little voice next to me coming from Matthew. Because he yells, "Show it in reverse!" And then everybody starts laughing. And this guy over here goes, "Yeah, show it in reverse." And then over here, this other guy goes, "Yeah, show it in reverse." And then all of a sudden, the whole room starts chanting, "Show it in reverse! Show it in reverse! Show it in reverse! Show it in reverse." And I look down at Matthew, and he's just looking up to me. He's like beaming from ear to ear. And he's looking at me with like this look of accomplishment, like, I did this. You know, and the whole room is going, "Show it in reverse! Show it in reverse!" And then this carny in the back of the room hits rewind on the VCR. And this vagina on screen just starts slurping up this umbilical cord and all this ooze, and this baby and it starts swallowing this baby's head, and this doctor's arm just starts shoving it back in, and it starts sucking up the ooze and all the gore, and everybody's clapping and they're screaming, and they start patting little Matthew on the back. And I have never been prouder of another human being than I was of little Matthew at that moment. So as I said, I wasn't the best big brother. But from where I was standing, the kid turned out all right. Thank you. All right. Thank you.